Welcome to this latest presentation from NRGscapes lab called Tuning the Unknown, Harmonic Signatures and Scalar Resonance in UAP, with the subtitle Profiling Signal Architecture in Transmedium Anomalies. So this presentation is going to look at signature analysis and its implications for scalar resonant mobility systems at NRGscapes lab. Reverse engineering. There's a couple of video clips there on orbs and orb-like craft and technologies that we will be looking at in particular in this presentation. As a background, so welcome to the presentation on harmonic signature profiling of UAP. It's a synthesis of recent findings from two technical investigations into scalar resonant structures observed in orb and orb-like anomalous phenomena and their potential biological effects. Now, the presentation is based on two technical papers we put out recently on the NRGscapes lab profile on ResearchGate, and one of them is called Signature Profiling of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Signal Signatures, Harmonics, and Resonance Signatures. And the other one is a case study on structured harmonic signatures in orb and rod-like UAP events, dual frequency evidence, and biological resonance. As a background to the content of the presentation, we have research objectives, methods overview, light and sound frequency conversion, the orb and rod case study, audio conversion of IR signatures, structured harmonics and signal profiles, intentional harmonic coding, harmonic entrainment, biological implications, engineering implications, and lastly, our scalar resonant mobility systems model, and we wrap it all up with a summary. So to introduce the topic, we have here, if you have a look, investigate UAP signal structures using harmonic and frequency analysis. Now we explore how waveform signatures across the light and sound spectrum reveal structured emission patterns. For the introduction, we also explored dual domain evidence, so UAP infrared waveform analysis and biological resonance, and we look at some analogs for that as well. So our research integrates IR imaging with sonic translation and supports the need for physiological testing in human subjects to uncover hidden coherence. And lastly, one of our focuses at NRGscapes lab is to advance reverse engineering of UAP energetic architecture. So these findings offer clues for further developing and prototyping our scalar resonant mobility systems and novel propulsion mechanisms. Now, just as a background, we have UAP emit structured frequencies, so acoustic, photonic, and scalar. So observed phenomena display frequency modulations that defy natural randomness and suggest engineered output. Now these patterns suggest intentional propulsion, navigation, or communication systems, and this is post or non-Newtonian propulsion. So repeating harmonics and geometric overlays imply these emissions serve functional roles beyond appearance. Now there's possible alignment with both physical and bioresponsive frameworks. So the frequencies may fall within human responsive ranges, hinting at biocoupled or awareness-linked interaction. So we talk a lot about the interaction between the observer and the phenomenon in that regard, and our papers discuss this in detail as well, including this term that's being bandied around at the moment called psionics and the implications that has as well. Now, in terms of research objectives for the program, so we've profiled the signal characteristics of UAP across light and sound spectra. So we aim to extract and analyze coherent signal structures from captured visual and audio data. So we determine recurring harmonic patterns in UAP events. So the ongoing study at NRGscapes lab that intends to compare waveforms across multiple UAP types to reveal universal or class-specific harmonics that we can model or use statistical modeling to pick up patterns and trends. We also want to examine biological resonance and potential coupling mechanisms. So we want to test how these signals affect human biofields to provide insight into our SRMS operator interface design. And lastly, develop models for scalar resonant propulsion implications. So the underlying physics points towards advanced field-based motion technologies, and a lot of NRGscapes UAP research program focuses on this and reverse engineering UAP technology. Just here we have a methods overview. So the first part of the methods is infrared frame analysis, color channel reduction, waveform extraction, and that can be from hyperspectral as well. So we use advanced imaging decomposition to isolate and map energetic contours from UAP videos. We look at wavelet and Fourier analysis tools. So we use them for signal and shape comparison. So essentially software-based tools that have mathematical formulas and algorithms to identify temporal and frequency domain features in waveform data. The main focus of the presentation today is on audio coupling, though, a sonification of visual infrared signals. So that's converting light to sound, which helps us interpret otherwise invisible resonance structures. And then another part of the methodology across our program, our broader program, is biological resonance tests, looking to develop this further as we move forward. So exposure to matched frequencies in controlled subjects. So that's a whole area we're getting into at the moment, looking at the interface between our SRMS system and the whole concept of consciousness interface, or psionics. So subjects could be exposed to derived tones, measuring responses in cognition and autonomic function. And we'll talk more about that through the presentation as well. In terms of light and sound frequency conversion, so we use frequency matching formula. So standard formulas and software packages bridge electromagnetic and acoustic domains through a scaling factor, because the ratios between light waves and between sound waves are the same. So that musical scale and effect is transposable between light and acoustics. So we convert EM/IR wavelengths into an audio domain. So by translating light into sound, we can gain insight into how the energy might be experienced in biological subjects. So this enables human scale interpretation and comparison. So it allows us to essentially listen to the light, discern rhythm, tone, and modulation in perceptual space, which means we can much better understand what's going on when we look at the light signature characteristics of UAP, or the phenomenon, by converting it into an acoustic signal. In particular, we have an orb and rod case study, quite an extensive archive of footage and analysis from Karijini National Park here to discuss. So we have infrared frame stacks that reveal concentric phase shifted wavefronts in orbs. So stacked and filtered frames show circular energetic pulses forming rhythmic interference patterns. Now, harmonic sequence in the shape of scalar modulated pulses was recognized. Now, these pulses followed mathematical harmonic ratios consistent with scalar driven modulation. And a lot of our publications talk about this and discuss it, and we'll show you some of that signature analysis in the presentation here as well. Now, sound forms possibly trigger limbic and vestibular system responses in human and animal subjects. So converted tones could have measurable psychophysiological effects on observers, suggesting deep resonance. And that's where this whole concept of psionics comes in, or conscious interface technology between the observer and UAP. Now, in terms of the rods at the same time up there in Karijini with the orbs, distinct banded signatures were evident along the longitudinal axis of rods. So unlike the orb, the rod exhibited repeating
energetic bands or lateral extensions or spindles along its spine-like axis. Now, these are analogous to phononic striations aligned with the field axis. So these features resemble waveguides or striated phonon paths aligned to internal field direction in terms of scalar phonon production in scalar fields. And then finally here, dual frequency imprint. So high overtones with rhythmic low frequency carrier signals. So we suggest that this is probably going on. And one thing we do emphasize is that we're pretty confident that rods are derivatives of orbs, and they represent a morphology or transient morphology between a rod and an orb archetype, and we'll talk more about that in the presentation and what that means for signal profiling. So essentially, the rod structure may carry a paired harmonic signature suggestive of drive and control field separation, which is a little bit different to orbs. We do have an example of converted IR signature from light to sound from infrared videography here. So this analysis here, just a screenshot of waveform analysis. So the spectral analysis of a slowed UAP video was converted into audio waveform. The top panel here displays a temporal frequency spectrogram showing dense structured harmonic bands from 0 to 4,000 Hertz. Now, the upper end can get higher, and we think it can get up to 40,000 Hertz. A lot more work to do in the field on this, but this is a preliminary assessment and finding which seems significant. So it indicates repeated frequency patterns across time. Now the middle panel shows a frequency domain analysis with a dominant peak around 740 Hertz, and it's closely aligned with the musical scale and octaves and notes. And in this case in particular, the F sharp G band of tonal frequencies in the musical scale. Now it suggests a stable vibrational component. Now the lower panel here just displays the raw waveform data showing consistent undulating signature pattern. Here is an audio. Now listen carefully and you'll see the musicality in this signature as it's played. Now in that signature you'll notice a harmonic undulating tone going through, and then you'll hear this kind of sharp pulsed sound in the background behind it too. So there's essentially two components to it. There's a harmonic signature there and an underlying pulse rhythm to it as well. Now that was filmed during capturing orbs and rods at 850 nanometer IR spectra. So we are confident that there is some sort of underlying signature that has something to do with the orientation of orb and orb-like phenomena in physical space. Now, in terms of structured harmonics in the signal profile, we've got Fibonacci sequence pulses. So these harmonic intervals between pulses align with these ratios, possibly related to optimizing energy coupling in the scalar field in physical space. We've got overtones that sit inside base frequencies in harmonic shells. Now this reinforces phase coherence. So there's essentially nested resonance forms in the terms of ratios across the musical scale or the octave, representing the Fibonacci sequence pulses. Now the scalar beat frequency, there are low frequency pulses that may be scalar carriers that modulate higher energy visible emissions. So there's some link there between resonance and the ability to orientate, navigate and communicate in physical space without being governed by the physical domain in terms of gravity, inertia, friction, acceleration, drag forces or Newtonian forces. Now there's chirped up and down harmonic ladders.
Now some pulses accelerate or decelerate through harmonic steps, indicating intentional signature coding. So a lot more work to do with these signatures, these harmonic and pulse signature profiles in orbs in UAP, but at least this represents a start, and there's definitely something significant there related to Scalar technology, bioengineering, reverse engineering, and our SRMS system at NRGscapes lab. Now we have a look here at some other analogues, and we've done a bit of work on this because nature's a great teacher, and a great example is the Amazon knifefish, or the blunt-nosed knifefish, which emits a continuous electric pulse at around 300 to 900 hertz for navigation and communication through its environment. And there are actually differences in that frequency between males and females too. And we've also read in the literature that that electric pulse signal can be interrupted if the axis of orientation or horizontal axis of orientation is interrupted. In other words, if the knifefish bends its body, it interrupts the pulse signal it generates along its lateral sides. So its field-based sensing behavior parallels rod-type UAP, which may use similar frequency-based pulses for scalar lattice navigation. And there are other examples of electric field strength or electric field use and extreme speed in salmon, for example, overcoming extreme water flow and being able to remain relatively stationary as well. Just another example here, of course, is human analogues. DNA resonant frequencies and IR, believe it or not, are in the same frequency domain as what we've seen with UAP and converting light to sound. So infrared absorption spectrum of adenine in particular, in this case, reveals vibrational peaks which convert to harmonic audio tones like F sharp and D. Now these tones align with those found in UAP waveform analysis and support potential biological resonance links in the lower band of dual frequency signatures. So there's quite a good analogy here and quite strong evidence for UAP having some sort of connection or biological interface with their surrounding environment, and thus the importance of consciousness studies and psionics and links to the UAP phenomena from orbs to other orb-like craft and structured craft, not just the orbs that we've investigated assembling, but actual structured craft as well, having some sort of biological coupling going on between themselves, the occupants, if they have them, and the surrounding environment and the observer. And lastly, for another analog here and for intentional pulsed harmonic coding is geometric unity. This whole thing on the internet of the cube UFO. Now this cube and sphere UAP exhibits a harmonic frequency which is very close to the atomic mass energy resonance of human DNA. Now that alignment suggests that the cube-shaped UAP may be engineered for biological resonance, supporting scalar coupling and harmonic interface series. So we've got three things here. We've got a cube UFO resonating at a frequency close to human DNA. We've got examples of the Amazon knifefish with low frequency pulse signatures for communication and orientation as well. So there seems to be a lot lining up in terms of consciousness interface technology when it comes to reverse engineering UAP for NRGscapes lab, and how that links back to the resurgence of this term psionics, which has come back in discussions with what they call summoning UAP. And there was also this Jake Barber's dog whistle technology as well. Now that's all tied up with this technology in NRGscapes lab is looking at reverse engineering. So in terms of entrainment or interface, in comparison of orb-rod systems, radial harmonic fields versus longitudinal phononic layers. Now we've got different field structures between orbs and rods that imply varied movement strategies, so orb, toroidal, and rod wave guided, and if one is derived from the other, then there must be some sort of trans, and we have actually seen transient forms that are in between the two, suggesting that there is some sort of morphing going on when they want to change their orientation to, I would suppose, call it more hovering in physical space to transiting physical space at extreme speed with no acceleration. Down here, rotational vortex nodes versus linear lattice tension. So orb fields spin and compress, and we've got lots of publications on this now, whereas rod fields stretch and oscillate along its spine, which has a spindle around it. Now, we suggest here there's high entrainment versus deep vestibular disruption. So orbs may stimulate meditative entrained states in biological subjects that are observing the phenomena, whereas rods may cause imbalance and altered time perception. So if there's an interaction in the scalar field between the conscious observer and the UAP event, then that would be evident in states of mind and the physiology of the observer or the human or animal subject. Now, lastly, pulsed plus toroidal versus striated harmonic rails. So energy distribution geometry further separates these UAP expressions. So we've got this, when we looked at the example before of the acoustic signature, this is just restating the pulsed versus toroidal versus striated harmonic rails picked up in the signature in terms of pulse versus harmonic, essentially what you'd call music. Again, just a visual here of this of orb rod phases in the transient form in terms of morphology, representative of harmonic and pulse signature profiling. So we're talking about the pulsed signature versus the harmonic signature differences here, and here we've got the morphing orb with its ringed structure, and then we've got that conversion here or transitional geometry where the rings become spindles around an elongated axis, and then we've got the scalar plane transit through these scalar planes in the scalar field going on, which is instantaneous with no accelerations versus more of a hovering through the scalar field from the orb. So going more from investigation to transits, and how that, what the implications that has for reverse engineering technology in terms of cognition or consciousness interface technology. If you're reverse engineering what we observe going on inside this orb and rod, and how that relates to more of a structured craft morphology as well. So suggested biological resonance effects. So if subjects are exposed to converted harmonic profiles, so we're taking light signatures, converting them to sound files, then infrared signals could be played as sound for controlled participants in laboratory settings, essentially to test subject responses to these pulsed and harmonic resonance fields. Now, the physiological and neurological responses detected. So sensors could record signs of entrainment, including heart rate shift and skin conductivity changes. And that's to look at technology to develop that becomes an interface in terms of psionics between the observer and a craft, an operator, a craft, or a pilot and a craft. So we're going from observer-based UAP observations and interactions to actually operator piloted interactions with a structured craft that's been reverse engineered using the same principles that we've observed in the field and analyzed. So essentially you have a conscious coupling interface design potential that may exist. Now, reactions could imply a potential human intended or biologically aware interface system in UAP. In other words, when we were in the field around orbs, rods, and other orb-like craft and objects, there seemed to be an awareness of the observer and that implies, irrespective of whether these craft or objects contain operators or not, or they're actually sentient or some sort of conscious AI, there seems to be some sort of biologically induced awareness of their surroundings, and not just their physical surroundings, but actually aware of living organisms around them when orientating to our physical dimension. So what are the engineering implications for this? So we've got embedded Scalar tuned harmonic drives. So these systems may be replicable as tuned cavities or waveform locked phased arrays. And we've done a lot of publications now on our reverse engineering program on our ResearchGate profile on this, which you can read about. Biological compatible navigation interfaces. So future fieldcraft may include operator coupling through harmonics and intention feedback. So that's that thought or mind controlled craft structure. In other words, there's not really a cockpit. There's more of an interface platform between the user, either being in the craft or outside the craft, and the craft's operation. So resonant shielding and phase locomotion layers. So defense and propulsion can be layered in frequency band and not material structure. So we're not talking about, for example, bulletproof material science. We're talking more resonant shielding in paned layers when negotiating the lattice or the scalar field. So essentially, you're repulsing incoming technology that may be designed to try and interrupt what you're doing. And that's where they talk about downcraft and microwave array weapons technology, or EMP weapons technology, interrupting these UAP and bringing them down, because you can't bring them down with physical munitions. It just doesn't work, because it just drops out as soon as it gets close to these layered frequency bands. It interrupts essentially a missile trajectory, and it stalls, and that's it. It's all over. So the way they bring them down is by replicating the actual technology of the craft itself, and then interrupting it by firing it back at them. So potential for communication via frequency entrainment. Scalar harmonics could be used to exchange information or signal identity securely. So there's a big focus here on communication via frequency entrainment as well. So getting towards the end now. So the plane-layered scalar field model I was discussing previously, is that field coupling appears plane-layered with scalar indexing. So observed harmonics suggests the field structure is stratified with resonant valve between layers. So we've got this valving, and we've got very, very strong evidence of this in our quantum imaging of orb-like phenomena, and the layering of this with nucleated cores, showing that there is some sort of what would you call it, phased indexed valving and phasing through physical space within the scalar field, so morphing across it essentially. Now the transitions between layers modulate phase and frequency. So UAP maneuvering may involve jumping between indexed field states, altering waveform output. So you get this instantaneous appearance, disappearance, and reappearance in a different part of physical space, which is superluminal. So not only are you bypassing gravity and overcoming inertia, but the limitation of the speed of light isn't even relevant, because you're operating in a different domain and phasing across the lattice in this plane-layered scalar field model. So it suggests a complex mobility and concealment capacity, because by default the craft or object is automatically cloaked. So the plane structure would allow stealth, phase shift, and high G mobility through scalar modulation. So just a summary of findings to wrap up. So we've got structured and non-random UAP signaling detected. So the signal analysis confirms intentional energy structuring. We've got scalar coupling, IR patterns, and suggested bioresponse convergence. So together they support a unified interpretation of UAP behaviour and purpose. We've got orb and rod morphologies that represent phase states, rods being derivatives of orbs. These are not separate craft types, but modulated states of a single energetic domain interface. And this opens design space for resonant mobility systems. The patterns can inspire a new class of field-based propulsion and navigation systems, and that's what NRGscapes lab focuses on in terms of reverse engineering technology. So just closing, and next steps for us is expanded harmonic libraries with additional UAP events. So greater data set gives us stronger signal pattern certainty and classification. Allows us to apply our AI model and search our database and find even stronger patterns. It allows us to apply statistical modeling to that as well. And we developed bioresonant cockpit models for prototype testing to apply findings to early stage SRMS fieldcraft designs. So we're looking at investment in a research and development facility across a range of aspects of our UAP research program and reverse engineering, and that's from field-based observation to porphyry membrane printing in the lab and testing to test bed models of this to full-scale production of an actual field craft. An AI-based signature comparison to detection automation, so like I've just referred to build tools for real-time signal recognition and UAP observation and interception, and not just in the lab. So thank you once again for listening to this presentation. You can find us on ResearchGate under NRGscapes Lab, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube under AD Morgan Media. We will look forward to talking again soon about our NRGscapes UAP program and its further development. Thank you.